Yeah, I know this teaser trailer is about a week old, but I still want to talk about it. Why? Because it's Game of Thrones, dude. Yes, Game of Thrones, the hit show from HBO, is getting a prequel show. And say what you want about Game of Thrones, yeah, that final season did kind of sink it all to the ground. But for me, that doesn't change the fact that it was still one of the greatest shows ever made. I mean, when it was good, it was really good. Just production-wise, and in terms of grand size and scale and scope, it's unmatched in terms of TV shows, complete with one of the best intros and scores a TV show has ever had. And so, as it turns out, we are not done in Westeros yet. We are now getting a spin-off show that takes place 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. And this prequel show is called House of the Dragon, which makes you think, alright, it's gonna be about House Targaryen, because their sigil is the dragon. The Targaryens are all about fire and blood, fire being the dragon part of it. We remember in Game of Thrones, the biggest Targaryen character in Game of Thrones was Daenerys, and she was a huge part of that show, all the way through, in all 8 seasons. So now I guess we're going 200 years in the past, we're gonna see some more of not the origin story, but some of the backstory, I guess, of the House Targaryen. I mean, I don't know exactly what the story's gonna be. I've never read George R. R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire books. I know a couple of people that have, though. And also, likewise, I don't know who these characters are, although I did see a couple of familiar faces, the most recognizable to me being Matt Smith. Yeah, Matt Smith is having a pretty good year. He's keeping busy, being in Last Night in Soho, which is coming out pretty soon, and now being a big part in House of the Dragon. Obviously, he's playing a Targaryen, because look at that hair. I've never seen Matt Smith with such blonde hair. That's gonna take some getting used to. But also, there are gonna be some actors in this show that I do know from other things. Like Olivia Cooke and Rhys Ifans are gonna be in this show. I know Olivia Cooke from Ready Player One, and Rhys Ifans was Xenophilius Lovegood in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. He was also the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man. They're both good actors, so they should be good in this show. Also, Graham McTavish is gonna be in here. He was Dwalin in the Hobbit movies. You know, he was kind of a brute, so I'm looking forward to seeing who he plays in here. And this teaser is straight up a teaser. It's like less than 2 minutes long. It doesn't show us much. There are a couple of blips where I was like, oh, that's interesting. I do recognize that from Game of Thrones, which is kind of weird since this taking place 200 years before Game of Thrones. You might think nothing would tie in, but no, a couple things I'm like, yeah, I remember that thing from Game of Thrones. Like, for example, that dagger you see that one chick carrying. Actually, I think that might be Olivia Cooke. But I recognized that dagger. I was like, oh yeah, that's the dagger that one guy tried to kill Bran Stark with in the 2nd episode of Game of Thrones. You know, that Valyrian steel dagger where Baelish in the 3rd episode was like, oh yeah, it's mine. I'm currently rewatching Game of Thrones right now. So alright, I guess that dagger must be pretty important if it's passed down through 200 years. I did like seeing that armor too. I mean, this is Game of Thrones. The production design is gonna be, hopefully, at least as big and grand as Game of Thrones was. We haven't seen any of it yet, but I'm pretty sure House of the Dragon is going to be just as violent as Game of Thrones was, as in very much so. That's one of the things people liked about Game of Thrones, is that it was really graphic, really violent. It showed a lot of things where you're like, oh, we just saw that. I was not expecting that, and now I'm never gonna be able to unsee that. It was a very mature show, and I'm sure a lot of people are expecting that from House of the Dragon as well. A lot of violence, a lot of gore, a lot of nudity, perhaps even some incest. Yeah, I saw that look she was giving Matt Smith. Hey, they are Targaryens, you never know. And of course, you gotta close out this trailer with that iconic imagery, that the first image that comes to your mind when you hear Game of Thrones. Yeah, it's the Iron Throne. And so, okay, we are going to be seeing the Iron Throne, which means we're gonna be seeing King's Landing. And this is interesting because around the Iron Throne, we see all these swords that are kind of nesting around it. That's new. It wasn't like that in Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, there were no, like, swords on the stairs surrounding the Iron Throne. It was just the throne by itself. But here in House of the Dragon, we see, like, a bunch of swords nesting the throne. It looks cool, don't get me wrong. I'm just curious now as to how those swords that are surrounding the throne go away between here and Game of Thrones. I mean, that's a small detail, but now I'm curious. I'm curious as to who's sitting on that throne, who is the king of the 7 kingdoms. Are there 7 kingdoms at this time? I don't know. And I gotta talk about the music in this teaser. Cause yes, it does bring back that awesome Game of Thrones theme. Da, 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 da. Like I said, one of the best TV show themes ever written. Written by Ramin Djawadi, my man, cause he went to my alma mater. And I am so glad that he is coming back to score this show. That's awesome. And towards the end of this teaser, you hear that Targaryen theme, that Winds of Winter theme. Da, da, da. I love that theme. That final scene at the end of Game of Thrones Season 6 where Daenerys and everyone's on the boats going to Westeros. Yeah, the music in that scene, I never forgot it, because it's just that good. So yeah, in the end, of course I'm looking forward to House of the Dragon. I'm not sure how many seasons it's gonna go for, and I'm also not sure when exactly it's coming out. All we know for now is that it's coming out sometime next year, in 2022. Could be in just a few months from now, could be in a year from now. But we'll see how it goes. So, the official teaser for House of the Dragon. Have you watched it? I'm sure you have by now, it's been almost a week. What do you think about it? Are you looking forward to this show, or did the end of Game of Thrones just completely ruin it for you? Any answer you have is great as long as it's your honest opinion, so whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.